We're talking everything that happened inside and out of the cage, UFC Perth, right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your main event of the evening.
Fighting out of the red corner from HBF Stadium Festival Hall. Melbourne Pavilion. Not even backstage, we're literally outside.
Was that the best fight card in Australian MMA history?
Call me crazy, but make sure you call me when I'm right.
Welcome, everybody, to the Australian MMA podcast. My name is Mitch Tinley, your host, and we will be talking all things UFC Perth. Now, that took place September 28th, I think 27th if you're in the US. Fights kicked off at 6 a.m. in the morning, and despite the news of the sort of, does anyone care? I don't care how they got the people in the venue, but they did in fact do that. There was 12,000 packed into RAC Arena, not RAC Arena, as Mr. Joe Martinez continued to say, at RAC Arena in Perth. And look, there was some ups and downs, and then we'll break those down very, very soon. Just sort of inside and outside the cage, fights, marketing, ticketing, all that sort of stuff. But it was a great event, and I feel like that's what the UFC does. And I'm really proud of the people of Perth and whoever came over to Perth, because you did the most important thing, and you backed the fighters. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters, even if there are probably a few lessons to learn for the UFC. Now, guys, before we get into it, of course, I want to thank Vex MMA. Could not do this without them, not just coverage of the event, but of course, just the podcast and brand in general, and of course, our gym partner, DCA. Also, shout out to Vex MMA, who gave away a prize worth like $5,000 to sort of bring people over to do something during the event. I don't know, legalities. But look, they gave a pretty good fan experience away, so shout out to them. Also, if you want to support not just me, but Australian MMA in general, not just the brand, the whole being, we've got a physical magazine, which is out now, issue 2. We got the king of the welterweight division, Jack Della, Maddalena, on the cover, and it's pretty cool. It goes into his life, his parenting, a lot of these stories. We got Cody Haddon, he's there too. John McAuliffe, once again, we'll talk about him. Jimmy Crute had a pearler of a weekend. A lot of guys on the cover. In the magazine. Steve Erceg, Khan Offley, and it kind of, especially the Khan Offley one's really, really good. It's not just fight related, it kind of goes into the backstories of their life, as you know that I love to do in Australian MMA, plus there's some puzzles and games. And look, check it out, shop.australianmma.com.au. You can also get some signed covers and signed articles and signed prints and everything, and it's all really, really great. Now, let's get into the fight week. Look, before we hit the actual fights, Australian MMA, of course, was covering the event, and not often do I think that we are important, especially when it comes to the UFC, but whew, boy, were we. There was about three to five media outlets pushing this event, and I would say all but one are just dudes in a basement with a podcast. There was, of course, ESPN were there, kind of, like they were covering some stuff, but they weren't doing, full ESPN as they should, which was a bit disappointing. I don't think I saw anyone from Fox Sports, The West, Channel 7, Channel 9, Triple M, any of the Hit Network, Nova. I didn't see anyone there. Relatively disappointed by that. They don't have to be there kind of like for all the media shenanigans and whatnot, but even at the event, I mean, maybe they had tickets and just sat in the crowd, but I saw almost zero promoting of the event, and you can blame the UFC if you want, but at the end of the day, mainstream media, I think, just need to do a better job. They promote the waffle, which is the one step underneath the Aussie Rules Football League, like the best league. They promote that better in the off-season than they did promoting UFC Perth, which was still, look, it was a fight night. It might not have had a single Perth guy on the card or whatever it was, but at the end of the day, it was still a massive event. They still did 12,000 people. I don't care how they got them in there. They got them in there. 12,000 people at RAC Arena. So, look, pull your finger out, mainstream media. Do a better job. And don't just sort of jump on the bandwagon when they bring JDM back and whatnot. Support it when it needs it the most, especially when we paid for it, you know. WA state government doing a great job there. Now, media event. Oh, yeah, shout out to Southern Cross Combat. Joel was there. Paddy, or Pity, as Jack Jenkins calls him, from Squared Up. He was there. Brett Benetti with SEN, but it was more like Brett Benetti was just there rather than SEN actually being there. So shout out to all those media guys. If you were wondering kind of who those voices were on Media Day, they're doing a great job. Now, Welcome to Country was on Tuesday. You would have seen that popping up. That was great. Media Day on the Thursday was just like really, really insightful. Like I said, that was pretty eye-opening to me as how little media were going to be there, because normally events in the past, you've had MMA Junkie, MMA Fighting, Oscar from the Mac Life, MMA Crazy, I think they're called. How dare I? Submission Radio was also there. The actual like goats. They're like sort of the real OGs of covering the sport. So apologize, guys. But yeah, they really were kind of the only big shot MMA brand, and they probably didn't have to come over either, but they did it to support the event. So shout out to them. But yeah, Media Day was great. Got a little insight. I feel like standouts leading up to the event, of course, were guys like Navajo Stirling is always good. I always love hearing from like your Tom Nolans. But I reckon lead up to the whole event, press conference, interviews, all that sort of stuff, goes to Jack Jenkins. Jack even said it himself that he's the only guy in the UFC to fall upwards. So coming off a loss, a pretty vicious injury last time, UFC Sydney, he essentially like cracked his trachea and had like fluid leaking in, and he like seriously could have died. And then sort of to come back and be, I think, the third last fight of the night on the press conference, doing all that sort of stuff. Just, yeah, absolute stellar stuff from Jack, and we'll go into that a little bit later. It was quite interesting, though, into the press conference, which was Friday. The open workouts was a ghost town. I think that was Thursday. And that was really, really concerning for me. And I think that was a real eye-opener for the UFC of just going, oh, this event might not be doing as well as we think. Now, look, excuses for them, which are valid. And I think the UFC is so big they don't really care. Or not, sort of like, why should they type thing. Like, AFL Grand Finals on. I think it's the NRL Finals. Perth Royal Show was on. That's huge. First day of that. School holidays. Like, it's just, yeah, there was a lot going on, and you don't expect the UFC. I mean, maybe it's their job, but you don't expect the UFC to kind of know when the Brazilian Royal Show is on when they go there and stuff like that. I just think the UFC is so big they don't really care, because they don't normally have to. But I think you mix this with, it wasn't exactly the most star-studded event. Fights are always going to be great. Fights were great. But in terms of like personality, storylines going in, the casual, you know, they want JDM, they want Jack Della Maddalena, they want Volk, and if they're not there, you got to give them a real reason to sort of come. I think if the UFC was to go again with a fight night, I think you can still stack the card with regional, which is what I loved. And I do think the casuals love that as well. But you got to have a big main event. Like, it's got to be a big, like, that's why someone like Strickland's good. You know what I mean? Because he really does bring a crowd. You could even bring like a Colby Covington. Do you know what I mean? But just a guy that is like electric. You put them in the main event, you still stack it with local talent, because we've got the talent to cover it. Like Jimmy Crute, Jake Matthews, Jack Jenkins, Tom Nolan, being in those spots. It's where they belong now anyway, especially on a fight night. So it's not like they were necessarily brought up and didn't earn it type thing. It's just that main event. Carlos Ulberg versus Dominick Reyes. I think we all sort of knew how that fight was going to go, and it just didn't. Carlos is great, but he just can't carry a card in Perth necessarily with the like personality. I mean, probably now, or if you get him off the back of when he gets his title fight. But yeah, it just didn't have that. It just didn't have the buzz. Look, then
Friday during the press conference, Dave Shaw said ticketing and stuff wasn't an issue. It clearly was, because they ended up dropping tickets. I think we saw some tickets that were between $300 and $500 later being available for $75 to $100, which I actually think was amazing, because never are you ever going to get that opportunity to go see a UFC caliber event. And the bloody event was good. And if you say it wasn't, you're just a hater. The actual event was really, really good. And for $75, man, you can't even go to Eternal or Hex, or I don't even think Beatdown for $75. I don't even think you can go to a Domination or a West Coast Combat Series amateur show for $75. That's how incredible that was, to put that into perspective. Is really, really cool. Now, we move on to fight day. There's more that happened. Look, there'll be chapters down below. You can just skip to your favourite part. When it comes to the official weigh-in, obviously, leading up to it as well, there was a lot of fallout before we even got the fight going, which was the fight show going, which I think was a big issue as well, because they're not just tickets. I mean, I actually think these guys falling out actually weirdly created more buzz for the event. So first off, we had Jono McAuliffe, unfortunately, his fight with Oban Elliott didn't happen, as the Welsh gangster picked up an illness and couldn't fight. And he actually, Jono McAuliffe was obviously not very happy. I do know that they met with Sean Shelby pretty quickly after, and I think they've rebooked him. I don't know if they've booked him as quickly, because you've got to build up your fight camp and whatnot. You don't want to peak for too long, and I don't know if he wants to reset and then kind of go again, or if he can just sort of taper it back for a couple of weeks and then get going. But Oban Elliott pulled up sick, and he was not super stoked, because I'll read to you what he said in regards to the matter. Jono McAuliffe, if you want to go look on his page, he had a really professional response. So shout out to him. But Oban Elliott, what did he say? He said, F this, I've seen and heard enough bullshit. This is what happened. I landed here last Friday and fell ill. I tried to shake it off, tried to train and got worse. I let the UFC know on Sunday, so that would have been the previous Sunday, and every day they dosed me with medication and prescriptions, hopeful to get me to the fight. I tried to stay positive. I checked in with the UFC on Tuesday with full determination, in capitals, to go about normal fight week business. Time was ticking, so I tried to train Wednesday morning but felt effing terrible. Bedbound. The UFC sent doctors to my room Thursday morning and were concerned I could have pneumonia or another severe chest infection, so they put me on emergency antibiotics. They didn't touch me then and still haven't. Without going into detail, I've had every symptom you can think of. The doctors told me if we don't call this now, you can make weight, and after we examine you, then we'll call it then. I wouldn't even let you fly, let alone fight. I refused to admit that this was reality and gave myself every chance for the medication to work before it was too late. The decision was made Friday morning because I was deemed in no fit state to fight with grace, so that my opponent wouldn't have to suffer the last stages of weight cut and also prevent myself doing potential irreversible damage to myself doing the same. Oban Elliott says he was 177.9 pounds Thursday morning before he was examined by the doctors and put on antibiotics. He then goes on to say, if you think I'd fly myself and my team to upside down of the world for nothing, then you must be upside down in the effing head. Fair point. Hills have eyes, C word. There is no case of bad weight cut. Bottling, plastic gangster. This is a real effing man, a real professional who came here to effing fight. And my body failed me. Simple as that. Anything that could have been done about this got done. Doctors are happy this won't get worse and I'll recover, so hopefully that is as soon as possible and I can fight soon. I'm absolutely devastated by all this. I love my team and my friends and my family who came all the way out here and the UFC for their support. I am still under the advice not to fly in this condition, or I'd be on the first flight home. I will be back. That's Oban Elliott's response to what happened. He seems very, very angry with what everyone says. I think it just sucks. It sucks either way. I think communication might have been the key. I don't know if Jono McAuliffe was told any of this. Maybe that's a bit of an issue there. The Plastic Gangsters, I think it was either him or his teammate, put up a few things. Obviously, a bit of a jab, the old Welsh gangster. Yeah, I met him. He seemed cool. He seemed good. I would like them to. I don't think they will, but I think just run that one back in a couple of weeks. Get him all good and Jono, depending on who he wants to fight, and then run it back. But yeah, Jono, unfortunate for him, but he will get his opportunity to fight again. But it probably won't be in Australia because the next Australian card is until February in Sydney, and you don't want to wait that long. So hang here for the next Jono McAuliffe update. Moving on to Justin Tafa. Apparently he was ill, struggling with the weight cut. He was supposed to take on Louis Sutherland, and apparently Justin Tafa was multiple pounds over. Still can't get confirmation on if he was kind of sick from the weight cut or he was sick and that's why he was not even going to make weight at the heavyweight division, which is pretty wild. He's missed heavyweight before. Pretty sad stuff for Justin Tafa because he's talked about some stuff he's had and some issues he's had in the past with weight cuts and leading into fights. And we only ever see the missing of the weight or the pull out. We don't really see or know the reasoning, but just know that there's some pretty serious stuff that has gone on with him at times. But either way, look, it sucks. No one wants that to happen. But yeah, the Justin Tafa Sutherland fight was off. I would not be surprised. I think he's had 7 bouts cancelled. And he's not on the best streak at the moment. So, look, man, I would not be surprised if Justin Tafa gets cut. I hope he doesn't because I think he's a lot of fun. I don't understand all the hate online with the Tafa brothers. I think they come to fight. Sure, they pull out every now and then, but that kind of happens. I just think if I had a magic 8 ball, I've got a feeling that both Tafas will get cut, although I really, really hope that does not happen. Now, we move on to the actual fight card, and I've talked for about 37 hours before we've even got into this, but look, we'll run through it all. The results: women's strawweight, Alexia Tainara versus Loma Lukbunmi. She won by decision. I think it was pretty lopsided. Alexia was pretty cool post-fight in the arena when she did media. She was pretty cool. Just kind of international fight was cool, and we moved on. I really, really like this. This is what really got us rolling. The Aussies had an absolute outstanding performance. The Aussie and New Zealand sort of cohort, and I could not be happier for this man. Brando Peričić versus Eli Ellison. Now, it's Brando. Man, Brando's cool. Brando's, if you're in the media, you are never sure if Brando likes you or not, but he is just an absolute stud of a bloke. Now, he took out Eli Ellison 155 into round 1 KO with what kind of looked like Eli almost dropped to half guard or tried to pull butterflies. I think he just slipped, or maybe he was a bit delirious with the shot that Brando threw earlier. But couldn't be happier for Brando Peričić. He has worked so bloody hard for this. I think he even said post-fight interview that he took out $100,000 loan and he's lived in his car at stages to sort of get this opportunity. This bout was supposed to be on the Contender Series, and I'm really, really glad it wasn't. I'm really glad that both men got moved to the UFC. Brando has, I think, 5 fights in 7 or 8 years because it's just been so difficult for him to find matchups. And what I really like about this is go back, if you don't really know what Brando Peričić can do, go back and watch his Hex Fight Series bout in New Zealand against Randall Raymond. He loses that bout, but the sort of resilience and the ability to dig deep and stuff from Brando, I think it's probably one of the greatest heavyweight fights I've ever seen in Australia. So to see Brando bounce back from that, kind of work really hard, first Adelaide-born UFC fighter to not just now be in the UFC, but get a win. So that makes South Australia probably per capita the best state in MMA now. 1-0, they're undefeated. And Brando's going to be a real, he's going to be real trouble in the UFC. I think he's going to knock out a lot of guys. I think he's he's going to climb the ranks pretty quickly, and I would not be surprised if we don't see him sort of ranked or in the top 10, top 5 within the next year and a half. I think he's that good. It's just mentally, and he's talked about this post-fight. I mean, I think he said 4 years ago he put a gun to his head. He's had some dark times, been in and out of court, all that sort of stuff. But he's dug deep, and if we can get the Brando that he knows he can be, I think he could very much be a contender one day. Moving on to Michelle Montague versus Luana Carolina. Now, apologies. Did not know, Michelle, this is how bad I am at my job. Did not know Michelle was from New Zealand. I had no idea. I was like, why they keep... Like, I thought it was like, she like grazed past New Zealand like once or twice in her life, and like then they were claiming her. And that's how you know I'm really bad at my job. But Michelle, New Zealand, kind of flying the flag of core MMA, one of the first non-city kickboxing New Zealanders, which is always good to see. She had a great performance as well. She's been an absolute stud. Just fun all week. Look at some of her media stuff. I think you put the camera on her and you put the mic on her a bit more, and she keeps going. I think she had 6 rear naked choke finishes leading up to this, almost very similar to like Ronda Rousey with the arm bars before this decision victory. I think she's definitely going to be one to watch as well. So keep an eye on her, and hopefully we'll have her on the show too soon for a bit of a chat. Next up, Colby Thicknesse taking on Josiah Musasa. Now, this man is building some hate online. I think it's always hard because it's like being the coach's son. He is coming in as Volk's teammate, Alexander Volkanovski, like perhaps the greatest featherweight of all time, easily probably the best fighter Australia has ever produced, not just in MMA, but and he's been dubbed and sort of described as Volk's main training partner. Been Volk's training partner for years. So the target he has on his back is ridiculous. Now, his UFC debut didn't go the way he wanted against Tapuria's brother, Alex Tapuria. But that was, I think 5 days notice or something. It was very, very quickly. He then gets this opportunity against Musasa, and it's just, for those who've never watched Colby Thicknesse fight before, I mean, my critique was always that he didn't have enough regional tests before he got to the next level, and I kind of feel like he's having them now. So I do think he's kind of getting a bit unfairly judged. He's never been the most crisp guy on the feet, and he always looks, I think someone described it as, it looks like he's stepping on Lego when he strikes, but he's always been a bit sort of awkward. You even talk to him, he's awkward as shit. But yeah, he's always been a bit awkward. Tremendous grappling on the ground, takedowns. Sometimes he just kind of throws the kitchen sink at it. He's not the prettiest fighter. That's the whole point. And he even said post-fight, he goes, I kind of won in the most Colby Thicknesse way. And he gets hit a lot. Like, it's a concern, like without a doubt. Like, there's fights, you go back and watch his Sam Kikembo fight at Eternal, and he got concussed like 3 times in the same fight and ended up winning. He is going to be that fighter. If he's going to be any good, it is just him kind of battling it out. He's probably very rarely going to just come in, spark someone on the feet, finish them. He is always kind of going to be in a bit of a war. And that's almost been his downfall at some points, as he's like taken so much damage. But man, he's tough. He's gritty. He's good. You watch him on the ground, you watch his transitions and everything. Like, he clearly knows what he's doing, and he's clearly slick, as they call him, thickness. But yeah, look, I think he's learning. I think he's learning on the job. I think that's what you're seeing. So every time we see Colby Thicknesse, whether you like him, whether you hate him, whether you think he's going to do good, whether he loses, whether he wins, I think at the end of the day, you're going to see him just get better and better and better. As for the result, look, he beat Josiah Musasa by unanimous decision. And I just think, look, he didn't look great on the feet, but Musasa looked like dog shit on the ground. And yeah, I think, look, either way. If he lost, I wouldn't have been completely upset either. But good for Colby. Moving on, Jamie Mullarkey taking on Rodolfo Bedoya. Now, that was a unanimous decision victory for Jamie Mullarkey, who had moved his camp to freestyle MMA from Central Coast with Ross Pearson, the old former UFC veteran. Jamie Mullarkey's absolute stud. Said he's moved his camp just because, a bit more bodies, a bit more guys at sort of his level, which is very, very fair. He's done a lot of work with freestyle in the past. It's good to see Jamie Mullarkey once again, very similar to like a Colby, probably way more crisper on the feet, but he always is in a bit of a battle and always has to grind it out. I feel sorry for Mr. Mullarkey. He's one of the most underrated guys we've got. He gets kind of no love because he doesn't talk a whole lot of shit. But he's always a fun fighter, and I mean, he finds a way to sort of bring it out. And at the end of the day, he's 31. You know what I mean? And his losses are coming up against like pretty tough guys. Like his last loss was against Mauricio Ruffi, who is a bit of a stud. So, and that was well over a year ago. So he's knocked the ring rust off, as he said. And I think he's just back on track, and we'll see where it goes from there. Up next, Cam Rowston taking on Andre Petroski. And I like this bout. Cam Rowston, victorious TKO round 1, 2 minutes 41 seconds into the bout. And Rowston, who is very much a grappler, has just come onto the UFC as the sneakiest striker. He really is. He's getting like weird comparisons to like Izzy, not as in like style, but just sort of coming in, sparking some dudes. Middleweight, 6'4", city kickboxing, same gym, out of New Zealand. But the Sydney native is just super impressive. And for a guy that was signed to the Contenders, I think, 2 years ago, and then that fell through, and then to finally get another opportunity and then be just held down by Therese Finney for so long, and then to have to see Rowston go back and just smoke some local guys and just do it the right way to get back on track, I think is really, really cool. He's a really, really great guy. You either find him super funny or super cringy, but either way, I really like him. He's just a good dude. He's a character, writes some cool lines for his post-fight interview, whether they pay off or whether they don't. But he's super dangerous. He's probably better on the ground than he is on the feet. So let that sort of sink in with how he's going. You can even watch that as he, I think, drops Petroski down. He gets kind of stuck in this armbar exchange, and he keeps like squaring up his hips every time Petroski looks to sort of change the angle, which is kind of like some high-level stuff for a guy that at least knows what he's doing on the ground. And yeah, he just seems to find range, and the old battle giraffe is doing well, man. I'm super happy for Cam Rowston, and who knows what they'll serve him next. I think Petroski was like 8-3 in the UFC or something crazy like that. So they're clearly just throwing what they wanted at Rowston. But he's backed it up to a fight to get into the UFC 4 weeks ago, and then a win in the UFC now. I think I think if he could go back to the Cam Rowston when we first started, 2 years ago, I think he'd be like, mate, look, just hang tight. It's all going to pay off. Up next, Navajo Stirling taking on Rodolfo Bellato. He takes him out by unanimous decision, and this was weirdly disappointing. I've been pretty complimentary of everyone leading up to this. The issue with Navajo is he is so fucking good. Like, when he got signed, I think I said something outrageous, which wasn't outrageous. It was that he's the heir apparent. He is the LeBron James to Israel Adesanya's Michael Jordan. I still stand by that, and I mean that. I think he will be the guy, and Carlos Ulberg and all that is doing great right now. But I really do think Navajo will end up putting city kickboxing on his back, and he will be like the guy from that gym. I think he'll fight for a title. I really, really do. And he's beaten guys. He's just not sparking guys. And when you've got that much hype, it's like the whole LeBron James thing. You know what I mean? And that's even coming from me, the guy that has sort of tried to force that. when you don't spark guys, it's critical. Like anyone else that was putting this many decision victories, look at even like Jack Jenkins. He's winning decisions, and we're just like, yep, cool, amazing, it's great. When Navajo does it, we're just like, oh, is this it? And I think he's probably going to do this one or two more times, like another sort of, not boring decision, because it's definitely not boring, but just sort of not steamrolling guys. And then almost like the Carlos Ulberg thing, where it was like quietly winning. And then I reckon he'll go on a bit of a run and start to put guys out, and that's when he'll make the noise. And he's very, very early into his career. I think he's only 7-0, maybe 8-0 now. So he hasn't had a lot of time in the octagon. He's obviously had some great kickboxing experience, but like putting it all together. So the more sort of flying hours he gets in the cage, I think when we do sort of get that super big push of Navajo Stirling, I think it's really going to pay off all these extra minutes in the cage. But yeah, I would say he would be disappointed with this result, and in a weird way, so am I. But that's only because we expect so much out of Mr. Stirling. But you'll take a disappointed victory than an impressed loss any day. We move on to the main card, and gosh, you got to love him being on this one. Tom Nolan versus Charlie Campbell. Tom Nolan took out Charlie Campbell, submission, rear naked choke, 4 minutes and 8 seconds into round number 1. Tommy Nolan, big train. He's almost my like character development fighter of the year, like, or last 2 years. Like, he came into the UFC from Eternal. He was like 5-0. And I think I was very critical at the start, because I was like, I wanted to see him kind of have a title, kind of do a bit more of a lap around the Aussie regional scene and really like make his stake at being the next guy. Jumps into the contender series, sparks someone, and he was just sort of like super violent, super like stoic, kind of almost like wouldn't smile, wouldn't talk to anyone. Then he gets caught in his first UFC bout. And I don't know if it was that moment or if he's just gotten older or whatever it is now. I think he's 25 now. He's got a fiance now. So he's even said he's like growing up a bit. He's like way more calm. So if you watch him in the bout with Charlie Campbell, he gets like cracked a few times, but he's very like patient now. And he would kind of fall into a shootout sometimes, and he would happen to win the shootout. But the problem with the shootout is even a lesser guy can catch you every now and then. If you're going to gamble it all on red every single time, it will come up black every now and then again. And I feel like Tom, yeah, he just showed that he's very like patient and calm in those moments where he's like, no, I'm gonna back up here, or I'm not going to do that. And you can sort of see it in him. There's still like obviously a little bit to go with that sort of stuff. But yeah, man, the UFC is super high on him, and as they should be. The more Tom talks, I think there's a clip on the Australian MMA _ Instagram page or TikTok or whatever. And he talks about sort of like wanting to be an inspiration for the youth. And I think the more Tom talks like that, the more sort of like likable he becomes. Like, I like the violence, but like if you even talk to him, he's got this like different vibe where he still wants to hurt people, don't get me wrong, but he's not this like fuck you dead to me type thing. He's got this like, I don't know, this way that he approaches it now, like, and I think that's going to take him very, very far. I think he's going to be an absolute star. Showed off his newly acquired black belt from Steve Compton. I think now he's on like a 4-fight win streak. So is he 10-1 or something? Like, just, yeah. I think they're going to still slowly build him like they should. But Tom Nolan's really turned it around for me. Maybe 2-3 fights ago, I wasn't too sure what he was going to do. Like maybe he was going to fall into sort of like the Jamie Mullarkey type position, where now I think maybe we will see him sort of climb the ranks a bit and get his opportunity at some of the bigger fights, especially because he's so like open and vulnerable of like fears and taking on tough guys and what comes with it. He's not just sort of shooting from the hip. But yeah, super happy for Tom Nolan, absolute stud. Moving on to the fight that everyone was talking about, Jake Matthews versus Neil Magny. Now, Neil Magny picked up the Das choke in round 3, 3 minutes and 8 seconds. Or did he? because Jake Matthews also picked up the guillotine choke submission victory 4 minutes, 58 seconds into round number 1. What a shit show. Just, if you weren't there, basically the referee stops the bout, round 1, 4 minutes 58, and Jake has this guillotine in, and he clearly stops the bout. Old Jim Peričić, who's done, one FC, he's done even the Run It challenge, where the rugby guys run at each other. He's even ref that. He's done plenty of local shows. I think he's done Brave before. He's done the UFC before. He's done heaps. He knows what he's doing. But he stops the bout and clearly waves it off. Like, he doesn't do the big this, but he clearly waves it off. And then Neil Magny pops up and immediately is like, that I wasn't out. And then Jim goes, which in a way I wish you could do, but you can't do. So this little discussion here is going to be about kind of like what the rule is, not what the rule should be. Now, I don't agree. I actually don't think Neil Magny was out. Some people do. Is what it is. Okay? Don't care. Now, Jim puts his hand on Neil to stop to Jake to stop the bout, right? So then Jake Matthews is like, oh God, the 12, 16 weeks, everything I've done is like all over. I can relax now. I can switch off kill mode and I can just take it in. How good's this moment? He then has to kind of figure out that the fight has to continue. And if you don't think that affects the next 2 rounds, you're joking. You've never competed. You don't know what you're doing. Now, Neil Magny is that good. Beating him once is hard enough. So beating him twice, also tricky. And this is a fight Jake's wanted for a very long time. So you can imagine Jake has put his eyes on this matchup. He's been thinking about it for 16 weeks. Finally gets it. Releases. Then has to kind of put it back on and go back in there. Now, I think Jim Peričić made the wrong decision, and I don't think Neil was out, right? So having him say, let's continue the bout, I like taking Jake's, the adrenaline dump and all that sort of stuff, because that's true, right? Take that out. You just look on, would that been a disservice to Neil Magny? I believe it would have. However, it's what he did. And everyone knows that once a fight is stopped, it is done. So the fight should have been over. And we should be discussing right now that Jake Matthews has a win. And we're not happy with Jim Peričić because of this. That's what it should be. In the worst sort of situation, he's let the bout continue. Neil Magny comes up, picks up the 3rd round finish of Jake. And like we said, all Jake's sort of concerns and things that he's flagged are all valid. So the fact that Jake now loses, it's now a complete shit show. Because, what do? Do you take the win away from Neil? You can't really do that. Although it didn't really happen because the fight should be over. So you can't... It's almost like you want to give Neil the win, but you shouldn't give Jake the loss because he already won. So it's like they both should get a win, but that's not how it works. So I think you got to make it a no contest. Up until this fight this weekend, I thought if a referee stopped the bout, realised it was a mistake, I kind of thought, yeah, he should just be allowed to restart it. But if you go and listen to Jake Matthews, and he's got a video up on the Earthlete, like athlete but Earth, on YouTube, and he explains it all on kind of like what his brain's thinking and what he's going through. So now I'm kind of like, oh, maybe the ref shouldn't be able to just make up for his mistake. And I think that's what it comes down to. Ref made a mistake, tried to play it off, ended up fucking both guys. Now, from what I know, just so everyone is aware, Jim Peričić, I think, is a good referee and he's a good guy. but I do think he fucked up. I think you go no contest. I think you pay both of them their win money, because technically they both won. And then you have them rematch. Maybe not in Sydney, but like you have them rematch. But yeah, it's an absolute travesty. It all comes down to Jim Peričić made the wrong decision. But like anyone will ever say, I don't care whether you're right or wrong, just back yourself. But then at the end of the day, he realized he made a mistake. I really think this is in MMA, this is as close to a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation as ever. Shouldn't have stopped the bout. That's where you go. Shouldn't have stopped the bout. And I think that's where we should have this rule, right? Knockouts, TKO, sure, stop them early, whatever, brain damage. I think with chokes, as long as you're not getting, and it wasn't this situation, but as long as you're not in like a neck crank or like a twister, like an actual choke, let them go out. If you've ever done jiu-jitsu in your life, you know that 5 seconds ain't going to kill you. Yeah, 5 seconds ain't going to kill you. Now, 10, 15, 20, that might. Maybe wake up a little bit slower. But I think you're playing it safe enough. Just let them go out and then check. So maybe don't touch Jake, because when you touch Jake, you're saying fight's done. But you can check Neil's arm. They can do that, right? So check it again, and just say, Jake, I'm just checking. Jake, I'm just checking the arm. Why can't we do that? I feel like that would stop a lot of this, because it's happened a few times. And then Neil can't protest, or Jake can't protest, because you check 3 times. I don't know. That's my thoughts. But keep in mind, guys, as we sit and we armchair quarterback, being a ref's a pretty fucking hard job. And yeah, does it absolutely screw Jake and his team rightfully pissed? Absolutely. And Jake deserves better. And Jake was on a bit of an absolute roll. And even if he'd won that bout, I think we really could have got to see what Jake has been working 11 years in the UFC sort of to be able to do. But keep in mind, referees, they make mistakes. It's just dire consequences. So, yeah. It sucks, but rematch, do it soon. Up next, Jack Jenkins, the real star of Fight Week. He just, from a man that nearly died in Sydney back in February, to sort of have this turnaround and just put on an absolute dominant display against Ramon Taveras, who weighed over 2 pounds over the featherweight limit, 1 pound over the allowance. It's always a weird one. So he's 147. He was supposed to weigh in at 145. I always think it's a bit weird. So if there's a pound allowance, technically he's only weighed over 1 pound, but he's actually weighed 2 pounds over the featherweight limit. So even reporting that is very, very weird. But anyway, there was confusion too, because Jack's camp told me 20% Ramon was fined. The UFC and Sean Shelby told me 30%. I then went and checked, and no one could give me a straight answer. So check old Mr. Sean Shelby's pockets for 10%. But no, pretty cool things, because Jack obviously took the fight because he's a G. And he has taken that money along with his proceeds that he made with StreetX MA1. They did a collaboration on the T-shirts. And those proceeds are going to the Ronald McDonald House. So it's like, for those of you who don't know, it's like a charity that gives parents money and puts them up for housing and stuff when they have sick kids in hospital. So pretty cool, because that'd be at least 10 grand, 10, 15 grand. Jack's just giving that away, and Jack's not loaded either. So I think that's very, very cool. But that sort of just continues the Jack Jenkins love, who really was the star of this fight week. Going in against Taveras, just did absolutely everything. You watch his kicks, you watch everything. He just puts it together really, really nicely. Only critique with Jack Jenkins, unfortunately, is he's not getting them highlight finishes. Like, obviously the leg breaks and stuff are always cool when you get to report it later, but like a Navajo Stirling thing, he's just slowly chipping his way up the ladder, which is still a cool thing to do. But he's just not getting them like highlight finishes that would really propel him. And at 32, I think he needs to be propelled a little bit more. And Jack's even said he's looking to get a little bit lighter over his next bout. He is taking some time off because he's getting married. And we should see him back. I don't want to see him back in Sydney. He's got the old Sydney curse in February. So hopefully we can see him before that or after that. But yeah, absolute stud. Jack Jenkins is. Well, I think he'll be ranked, and he'll be ranked high if he can put it all together. But yeah, there probably needs to be a few more highlight reel knockouts, if you will, or highlight reel sort of like Pat Barry style leg kick TKOs. Like he's really got to start to put that together to start making some real noise. But yeah, congratulations to Jack and his team, and obviously shout out to the macho men of mixed martial arts. I mean, to see Jack Jenkins just like bawling, like not welling up, like bawling, to say how afraid he was to get back in the cage and basically just to fight again after that injury. And to see people kind of like unanimously get behind him as well. Like no single person made like a Daniel Cormier crying meme or anything. So I thought that was really, really cool that people kind of, and that's just Jack, like people get behind him, and he's a really, really great dude, and wish nothing but the best for him. So hopefully he enjoys his time off, and when he comes back, he starts sparking people. Up next, co-main event, Jimmy Crute. I mean, talk about a man that sort of highs and lows of mental and emotional performances. Jimmy Crute just with the old camel clutch rear naked choke. It was just the old Chris Masters. Like, it was just sick. Like, it's so good to see a guy like Jimmy Crute, who I wish would open up more in the media leading up to fights, but he gets really like stoic and really like nonchalant type thing. But when you get him after, he is just, mate, he reminds you of a guy, of like your drunk uncle sometimes, who's just like a bit like, hey, where's the party? Like he's just fun. He's really, really fun. I remember seeing him up at his opportunity when he was fighting Anthony Smith, when Anthony Smith was really, really good as well. And he obviously just fell short of that. I think we're going to see a new and improved Jimmy, and obviously he's got newfound faith. He's big man of Jesus, and I love that for him. And I think up next for Jimmy is probably going to be a ranked guy and a good guy at that. I don't know. Like, even him versus like a Dominick Reyes would be a nice fight. I know it's probably maybe even a bit too soon, but I think Jimmy Crute's probably at that level now, and we can test him against one of the older guys that sort of was right up there. Like I mentioned, like when he sort of fought like an Anthony Smith. I think a Dominick Reyes type fighter would be very good for him. And if you want to see him sing Creed, go check out the Instagram page as well, because Jimmy Crute busting out some Creed in the post-fight interview was hilarious. Finally, Carlos Ulberg versus Dominick Reyes. Now, these boys had a lot of pressure going into this UFC Perth fight. Now, I even asked them, when the card's not selling, because the official gate was 1.8 million USD, which is, I mean, largest in Fight Night history, but that was like 8 years ago. And like, yeah, it's not an impressive stat. 12,543, I think, was the attendance. Don't know how much that was on Thursday or Friday, but I would not be surprised if it was around like the 8,000 mark. So yeah, you'd have to feel personally sort of responsible a little bit when it's not selling. Was always going to be a great fight. Was always going to be awesome. Carlos Ulberg defeating Dominick Reyes 4 minutes 27 seconds into round number 1 by a KO. Dominick Reyes was cool. Crocodile Dom D, as they named him, when he was wearing his customary, and every fighter that ever comes into our country and fights has to get Nakubra and has to dress like a crocodile hunter. But yeah, Dom Reyes, unfortunately, after a 3-fight KO win streak and a 3-fight KO or 4-fight KO losing streak, he's now back on the KO losing streak, which is not not good. Like you don't want that at all. Just for his health and the future. I personally would like to see him call it a day. Just because I think it's just too many knockouts. He's a stud of a fighter. I think the majority of people think he even beat John Jones back then. Sucks to have that as the sort of the only feather in your cap when it comes to how people remember you, but still, how many people can say that? So I would like to see Dom Reyes walk away, although I'll never tell a grown man what to do with his life. But yeah, it's I don't want to see him get knocked out anymore. Carlos Ulberg, on the other hand, geez, bloody 8-fight quietly winning streak, and now, boom, making some noise. He came into the post-fight interview as well, and said that Hunter Campbell had told him he will be the backup for Pereira versus Ankalaev. So he's probably even on the plane right now to Vegas. And he's going to cut again and be ready. I really like Ulberg. When you talk to him, man, honestly, he seems so boring from the outside. But when you actually talk to him, you listen to interviews, he's fucking hilarious. I wish he would do more media. I wish he would let his sort of personality go a little bit more. Like I think you even hear him when he, after the ceremonial weigh-ins, when he jumps on the mic, he's like talking shit to his mates. And even after he wins, you know, he does the whole Yuri Prohaska, like, I'm coming, making fun of when he was in the snow forest, doing that. Like, he's a funny guy. They just, I don't know, he just doesn't let it go. And I think he needs to become the star that I think he can become. I think he's 34 or something now. I think he can put New Zealand MMA on his back as hooker and sort of Izzy sort of wind down a bit, and he can hold the fort while Navajo and Brando Peričić and Cam Rowston sort of build their way up the rankings. But yeah, I like him better against Pereira, believe it or not, than I do against Ankalaev, but I'm very interested to see what happens. I think if he doesn't get this fight, they'll match him up with Yuri, and we'll go from there. But yeah, guys, what did you think of the fight card, UFC Perth? It was, yeah, being a part of it was very, very weird. There was like zero hype. But as always, the UFC delivers. They always do great jobs at the fights and the event, whether you're there or not. It would just be cool to see more people there. So hopefully the UFC learns in the sense of you can't charge caviar prices and then serve beer. But at the same time, that beer had caviar in the can. You just couldn't see it, if that makes sense. Fight card was sick. Everyone was cool. Great weekend as usual. Super stoked for the UFC to come back in February, which may or may not be happening. I think the UFC is trying to throw everyone off a little bit, but I do believe February, Sydney pay-per-view. Now, guys, remember, final, as we wrap this up, Australian MMA issue 2, check it out. Jack Della on the cover. Of course, he's fighting in November against Islam Makhachev. And some of, while I've got you guys who have never sort of done anything before, we'll go back to Australian regional fighting very, very soon. Stewie Nicol and Khan Offley, obviously on the October 11th card in UFC Brazil, so stay tuned for that. You've got Diamondback Fighting Championship happening in Adelaide, October 5th. And October 11th, Eternal MMA 99 back with a huge card. Anthony Drulich, who just fell short on the Contender Series, he's looking to regain his belt against Takeshi Taniguchi, and the former number one pound-for-pound fighter, as per Tapology, Abdallah Biada, is back taking on a very underrated Luke Daly. So that's going to be very, very interesting. And then November 8th, you got Beatdown Promotions, some fun fights. PFL Lyon in France, December 14th. Sarah Collins taking on Chris Cyborg. And then I don't have the dates in front of me. I think it's around early December. Maybe it's November. Eternal 100 will be back as well. Actually, let me get you the date for that before I get banned, before it even happens. November 14th. And 15th, they do like a back-to-back. And then I think November 16th, they have the Eternal MMA Awards. So Eternal MMA 100 and 101. And then, of course, Hex Fight Series is back on November 21st. 22nd. And that's going to be an interesting card as well. Anyway, guys, hopefully you enjoyed. If you stuck around, geez, you must be having a shit day, and you must be very, very bored. But go like, subscribe, check out everything Australian MMA _ if you can't find us. Support the channel, support Southern Cross, Squared Up. All those boys are doing great jobs as well. And of course, Submission Radio was always fun. But remember, be nice, ladies and gentlemen. See you next time.